turn away from it because, let's be honest, who really wants to sit around and talk about grief? But before you tune me out, I want you to know that what I'm going to talk about today can hopefully touch each and every one of y'all. I'm going to talk to you about how to get yourselves through grief, and I'm going to talk to you about how to be a good friend to somebody who's grieving. I feel like there's a lot of hurt going on in our group right now, and so this is just something that has been put on my heart to speak to you guys about. And I am as nervous as I am excited to talk to y'all. So, but some of you may be thinking, well, yeah, nobody close to me has died, so I'm good. I don't need to listen to this. But y'all, grief is about so much more than death. Grief comes in many shapes and sizes, including job loss, difficulties in your marriage or marriage separations, moving to a new city, change in a lifestyle, having a sick kid or having a label slapped on your child, even having goals or dreams that you had for yourself that you wanted to accomplish before you had children and you didn't do them. Those are things that it's okay to grieve. And of course, death or any kind of change in life that you just were not expecting or that you're just kind of not cool with. You can grieve these things. So before I get into the stuff I'm going to talk about, you might be wondering, okay, so why does she get to stand there and talk to us about this? How does she know everything about grief? No, I don't have a license in grief counseling or anything like that, but what I do have is experience with grief. So before I get into everything, I'm going to share my story, and I'm sure at some point I will cry, and I'm sorry. But I don't think I am sorry. I feel like at any time I could stand up here and talk to you and not get emotional, then I've been hardened to it, and I don't ever want to be that person. So I am sorry if it is disruptive, but I'm not sorry for being emotional about it. How's that? So I grew up here in Amarillo. My parents were happily married. They were the ones that I think they started dating in 7th grade, and that was it for them. They were the perfect couple. Growing up, we had everything we needed and pretty much everything we ever wanted. And we grew up going to church. Really, it was just kind of like the perfect little family for us. We are the typical family with 2.5 kids, the 0.5 kids being the Cocker Spaniel. I grew up with an older brother. You can see we liked the typical 80s and 90s family poses here. I'm sure you all have. Don't judge the perm, okay? If you didn't have a perm, then you're not quite as old as I am. So there's my older brother. He was 2 years older than me, so as kids we kind of had a love-hate relationship. My first experience with grief was in the 6th grade. My grandpa died. He died suddenly of a heart attack in my backyard. Luckily, my brother and I were at school. And that was difficult because I was a child. I was in the 6th grade and I had never experienced death of any type before. But I also knew, the order of life. Older people are supposed to die. Grandparents are supposed to die. So yes, it was painful, but it was just a part of life. Shortly after that, when I was in the 7th grade, we found out that my mom had Hodgkin's disease, which is a rare form of lymphoma. So she went through chemo and radiation and shortly went into remission, and we continued on with our happy little lifestyle. During my freshman year of high school, we learned that my mom's cancer had returned. At this time with cancer, and I don't know how it is now, but you couldn't treat cancer the same way twice. It's a very aggressive disease. So chemo and radiation, just that by itself was not going to work. So after chemotherapy, that time they did a T-cell transplant. I have no idea what that is, but that's what they were doing. We knew that it was going to mean a month-long stay in the hospital so that she could be in as much as a sterile environment as possible. So she had her ups and downs, of course, but as we neared the end of that month, things were really looking pretty optimistic. My mom was a fighter and a lover of God. She would have visitors come to her hospital room to pray for her and check on her and see if she could help my dad and me and my brother. And by the time they left, she would have it turned around on them. They were pouring their hearts out to her with all her troubles, and she was praying over them. She was just that kind of a woman. Well, all of a sudden, even though she was in a pretty sterile environment, my mom got pneumonia and was left fighting for her life. And I can remember this like it was yesterday. Sorry. No, sorry. Not sorry. So my best friend's mom, this was, I was going to I was going to register for my sophomore year of high school. So my best friend's mom came and picked me up at the hospital and took us to the high school to register and kind of go around and find our classes and, you know, check out the cute boys, all that kind of stuff. And we had plans later to have a sleepover at her house, and again, I'm showing my age here, but we were going to go see Clueless in the movie theater. Yeah. And so we were super excited about that. But before that, I was going to go back up and see my family. And so my friend's mom pulled up at the hospital to drop me off, and for a split second I hesitated, and I thought, this doesn't feel right. But I went anyway. I went up the elevator to the oncology floor, and when the doors opened, my uncle was standing there waiting for me, and I knew that my mom had died. So he took me to a hospital room full of family, and I curled up in my dad's lap and cried. My mom died when I was 15. It was a week after her and my dad's 20th wedding anniversary and 4 days before her 40th birthday. I suddenly found myself in a life where I was facing my first date, getting my driver's license, going to prom, graduating, picking out colleges, decorating the dorm room, getting married, and having babies, all without my mom. To this day, nearly 20 years after her death, I still find myself yearning for her during any momentous occasion that happens in my life. And I will openly say that I am 100% jealous of each of you who have a relationship with your mom. I don't say that to make you feel bad about me. I want you to know that it's okay to yearn for things that you don't have. As long as you don't let it overtake your life, it's okay. But I'm doing okay. I found other ways to find comfort. But you know, sometimes we just need our mamas. And so on those rare days, 20 years later, I still, the grief surrounding her death comes back to me. Now we're gonna fast forward several years, and this is me and my brother. We are now the best of friends because we have shared a bond that two siblings shouldn't have to share. He's the only one that really knew what I went through. He went through the same thing, and we shared that. Sorry. Apparently here we are way too cool to have this picture taken, so I mean that just, and then this, you know, we're wrestling and being goofs, that's just how we were. But my brother graduated high school, went to Texas A&M, and here, my dad, sometimes I wonder, he put me on an airplane when I was 16 and sent me out to College Station to visit him. Girls are not allowed in the dorm room, but that's where I stayed, sneaking me around, doing things we should not have been doing. But, you know, he was my buddy. So after high school, I moved to Austin, which is just 2 hours away from College Station. And I spent as many weekends in College Station with my brother as I spent in Austin with my friends. His friends became my friends. My brother got married. I got married to my brother's best friend. And we eventually all found ourselves back in Amarillo. My brother always went through a harder time with our mom's loss than I did. Not that it wasn't difficult for me, but I went through the steps of grief. I saw a counselor. I talked about my mom. I went to the cemetery. And those are things he never did. His first wife had an affair and left him for her high school sweetheart. He quickly got remarried and was in a relationship that, quite frankly, the rest of our family was not supportive of. This relationship began to change him, and he changed a lot. I think everything that he had experienced with our mom's death, losing his first wife, and the new relationship he was in, put him into a depression that he just couldn't come out of. But he was still my big brother, my biggest supporter. We would still wrestle and whoop up on each other no matter how old we got. 2 Christmases ago, we were both in our 30s. My kids are in their bedroom sleeping, and my brother and I are beating the crap out of each other on the floor because that's just how we were. On August 2nd, 2013, my husband and I went on a double date with my brother and his wife, and we really just had a great time. At the end of the night, my brother gave me a big hug and said, "I love you, sis." Little did I know that that was going to be the last time I ever talked to him. August 5th, 2013 is a day that is burned in my mind as well. My husband had to come home from work early to tell me that my big brother, the guy who hung the moon in my eyes, who I loved more than anyone, had taken his own life. This crushed me. It devastated me beyond anything I'd ever experienced, even more than losing my mom, because losing my mom could be explained. She was sick. She had cancer. This could not be explained. There was no answer. But here I am. I can stand in front of you today, a year and a half after my brother died. Obviously, I'm still hurting, but I'm here. So yeah, I know a thing or two about grief. But again, I didn't tell you this to make you feel sorry for me, but so that you know that I do know what I'm talking about when I stand here and say that you can overcome the most painful experience you have had to date. Please do not compare your grief to my grief, as everyone's grief is different. Yes, my pain has been deep, but that does not place my pain any higher than your grief or whatever you're experiencing right now. Like I said, grief encompasses many things other than death, but it's still grief nonetheless. Okay, we got the hard part out of the way. I feel like we should have some Taylor Swift and shake it off. Shake it off, okay. So first I'm gonna talk to you about how you can get yourself through grief, through the difficult days, weeks, months, and years following a difficult situation. And I do so days, weeks, months, and years because you cannot put a timeline on grief. It may take you longer to come back from grief than other people expect you to, but that's okay. It's your grief. It is not theirs. We can all experience the exact same loss at the exact same time, and every single one of us is going to handle it differently at different times and in our own way. The world around you will continue to move forward in time, but don't allow that to take your grief away either. The number one thing I want you to hear me say today, even if you hear nothing else, is to give yourself permission to grieve. Don't feel like you need to put on a brave face. You don't have to be strong today, or tomorrow, or even this week. Allow yourself to grieve the way you need to grieve. If that means you stay in bed all day, so be it. You think, I will have little kids, I can't do that. Let them stay in bed all day too. Make it a movie day. Put on your pajamas, cuddle up in the blankets, let them eat cookies all day. It doesn't matter. Do what you need to do for you. It's okay to stare off into space and feel what you need to feel while your kids watch Dumbo for the 58th time, or whatever it is. And if you feel numb, that's okay too. That's part of it too. Your body's gonna cope the way it needs to cope, but you have to allow it to happen. After my brother died, I was in pretty deep shock about that, and so my body physically shook for a week straight. And that was just, your body tries to compensate and to help you, kind of protect you. But you have to allow your body to do that. Just roll with it, it's okay. Don't feel like you need to walk into this room and put on a happy face for us, because you do not. Everyone in this room has experienced grief of some sort. And if you haven't, you will. It's just a fact of life. No one is immune to this. So allow yourself not to be strong in the moments when you need to break down. People always say to me, oh, Amanda, you're so strong. And I'm like, well, thanks, but really, what choice do I have, right? I have to be strong, and I have to fight to be okay. My word for the year is endure, and one of the meanings for that is just to keep moving, forward, whatever you have to do. Otherwise, I'm gonna end up, like my brother, and I'm not going there. So, yeah, I am strong most of the time, but I have learned to allow others to be strong for me when I can't do it myself. Next, let your kids see you grieve. Hiding your tears from your children does nothing to help you or them. They need to see that things don't always go your way, and they need to see that it's okay to cry and go through the different emotions that come with grief. They may not need to know every single detail to understand your pain. Share with your kids what you're comfortable sharing. My kids knew that my brother died, that their Uncle Jude had died, but they didn't need to know how. I mean, that's way beyond their years. But after about a year, my oldest, who's 8, he kept asking me, how did Uncle Jude die? How did Uncle Jude die? Well, I took him aside and I told him the truth. I didn't give him details, but I told him that Uncle Jude's brain was sick and he thought that the only way to go forward was to be in heaven. Again, I told him what I'm comfortable with. I don't give him all the details, and for now that's okay. But don't keep secrets from your kids. When they ask, tell them the truth. Because one day they are going to learn the truth, and you don't want to have to explain to them that you lied. Even if it is in their best interest, even if you think you're protecting them, kids don't understand that. They just know that mommy lied. So do not keep secrets from your kids about your grief. My kids have seen me cry more times than I care to count, and I still let them see me cry. Now, sometimes I do have times where the grief is so overwhelming that I end up on a heap on the floor, barely able to breathe and contain myself. And in those moments, I do not let my kids see me, because that is kind of scary to see mommy like that. But it is okay to let your kids see that you're human. You are teaching them a valuable lesson by allowing them to see your grief. And an even more valuable lesson when they see you overcome it. And they see, gosh, my mommy is so strong. She is a superwoman. They think you're that anyway, but when they see you overcome something so painful, you're even more amazing in that. Next, don't be afraid to ask for help. Listen, I know it's hard. I mean, I am that person, like, I can do everything by myself. I don't need your help. I don't want your help. Leave me alone. Period. One time I needed help when my daughter was 8 months old. I had to get my gallbladder out. I had to have a babysitter because I couldn't pick her up, which was like torture for me, because I don't want help. I'm good. I can do it on my own. But that changed when my brother died. I knew that there was no way I could get through this on my own, even if I wanted to, and I did want to. But you need to be able to look at yourself and know the difference between what you want and what you need. So I'm thankful that in those first few moments I was able to kind of look past it, my desire to curl up in the bed and just be alone for forever, and I realized I needed help. I immediately went to grief counseling, and I encourage everybody to go to counseling if they're dealing with any kind of hard time, because it's nice to have an outsider who doesn't know all of the details surrounding it. So you can go sit down and vent and get it all out there. You know, in the beginning, it's really hard to process your thoughts and to put them into words. And when you go to a counselor, they understand, and they're not going to flinch when you, I don't know, drop the F-bomb 53 times in a row, or you're just irrational. They get it. It's part of it. Your friends may not get it. They may kind of worry, but it is normal, and an unbiased ear knows that. But also on that note, don't push your friends away. You need to allow them to come to your side and help you. Okay, listen, we know people say dumb things in the face of grief. We all have. But try not to get upset at your friends for it. Most people just really want to help, and they don't know the right words to say. Allow them to help you. If you don't want to ask for help, let one of these other mamas organize help for you. It's what we're here for. There's no shame in asking for help. One of the other things I did is I went through the program at the Hope and Healing Place. They have a program for adults and children. It's amazing. And I also recommend finding a support group. Y'all, there's a support group for everything, I promise. And so I went to one called Survivors of Suicide, and it was just nice to sit beside other people that have experienced the same kind of loss as me. So I encourage you, whatever you're upset about, whatever your situation is, find somebody that understands. Also, don't be afraid, don't be honest, y'all. Yes, that is, don't listen to me. Don't be afraid to be honest with what you're thinking. We're also used to giving that standard answer, like, how are you doing? Fine, fine. We're all fine, we're always fine. I mean, really? Are we all fine? No, we're not. And it's okay. I don't understand why it's so difficult, and I do it too, for us to speak the truth. A real friend, when they ask you how you're doing, they really want to know. And if they're not a real friend and they're just asking to be nice, tell them anyway. Okay? It's going to make you feel better, and it's going to throw them off, which is kind of entertaining. So just lay it out there. So instead of, How you doing? Fine. Tell the truth. Say, oh, honestly, I'm doing really crappy. I cried all night. I didn't sleep at all. My eyes are puffy. I can't eat. You know, tell them whatever you need to tell them. Sometimes people are going to ask how you're doing, and you're just going to cry. And that's okay too. You don't have to have the words. But stop saying you're fine. The more you hide from people around you, the more you're hiding from yourself. Stuffing your feelings down is not healthy. It's not. My brother did it for years. Years and years of stuffing his feelings down. Find an outlet. For me, I run. I still don't love running. I started running after my brother died. I love the challenge, and it's excellent therapy. The things you get out while you're running or exercising of any sort, sweat it out. And I write. There are so many times where I'm feeling a certain way and thinking certain things, and it's all jumbled up, and I can't verbalize it. But if I sit down and type or give me a pen, and it's all magically it's all there, and I suddenly have words to go with my feelings. Find something that works for you. I have a friend who paints, another one who knits. Just find your niche and do your own therapy, because it really is important to keep your mind busy. One topic that I'll try to be brief on is forgiveness. It's another subject that makes us cringe, and we could talk for days and days and days about forgiveness. But really, in order for you to survive your grief, chances are there is somebody that you need to forgive. Maybe somebody has hurt you so deeply that you're unable to look past the pain they've inflicted on you. Maybe you need to forgive yourself for mistakes that you have made. Maybe you even need to forgive God. I mean, I'll be honest, there have been times when I get angry with God and I think, how could you have allowed me to lose my mother and my brother? Why did you allow this to happen? But I know that I can't blame my grief on God. We've all heard this verse, Matthew 18, verses 21 and 22 states, "Then Peter came to Jesus and asked, 'Lord, how many times shall I forgive my brother or sister who sins against me? Up to 7 times?' Jesus answered, 'I tell you, not 7 times, but 77 times. You know what that verse says to me? It tells me that forgiveness is not easy. You're not just going to wake up one morning and say, today's the day. I'm going to do it today. I'm going to forgive you know who, and we're all going to be rainbows and sunshine and peaches and cream, and I'm so happy. It's so wonderful. No, that's not how it works. Nowhere in the Bible does it say that forgiveness is easy. It's not. God gets it. You may have to wake up every single day for the rest of your life and ask God to help you to forgive somebody. I am a person that I struggle to forgive. I struggle with it every day right now at this point in my life. God knows we have words about it, y'all. Lots of words, but I ask him to help me, and it's hard. But I know that holding on to that hurt and that anger is only hurting me. I mean, if you think for 2 seconds that the person I'm struggling to forgive cares at all, that I'm holding on to that, you're wrong. Not hurting her, that person at all. I'm hurting me, okay? So forgiveness is key to helping yourself heal. Maybe after the 77th time it'll get easier, maybe it won't, I don't know. The point is, I'm trying to forgive, and chances are you need to do the same. Another way to help with your grief is to try to find a way to use your grief for good. 2 Corinthians chapter 1, verses 3 to 4 states, and this is kind of wordy, y'all. The Father of compassion and the God of comfort, who comforts us in all our troubles, so that we can comfort those in any trouble with the comfort we ourselves receive from God. Okay, so once you're at a point where you have received your comfort from God and you're feeling okay, step up. Comfort those that are hurting. Comfort those that have gone through the same thing you're going through. Somebody that is more recently hurting than you are. I know I'm in a church and I'm sorry, but I will be damned if I have gone through this much pain not to somehow try to change lives. I have become passionate about speaking up about suicide and working to break the stigma that surrounds it. I write a blog about it. I help with the support groups. I'm currently raising money to participate in the Out of the Darkness Walk in Dallas, which is shedding light on suicide awareness and prevention. I've also worked at the Harrington Cancer Center, which is where my mom had her treatments, and volunteered for the Cancer Society. Find a place where you can use your pain to help others, period. I mean, I cannot say that enough. Otherwise, what have you gone through all this for? You have to turn it into something good. Lastly, this should not be last, this should be first. But if you get to where you feel like you can do nothing else is working, immerse yourself in the Word. Okay, I'm guilty, I don't do this nearly as often as I should, but I can tell you 100% that when I read God's Word, that gives me more comfort and peace than any other thing possibly could. A few days after my brother died, I stumbled upon Isaiah 61:3, and it became something that I would read and meditate on several times a day. It is tattooed on my wrist, it is on my bathroom mirror, I read it every morning, every night, and it is something that just gave me a lot of hope, a purpose behind my grief. It states, "And provide for those who grieve in Zion, to bestow on them a crown of beauty instead of ashes, the oil of joy instead of mourning, and a garment of praise instead of a spirit of despair. They will be called oaks of righteousness, a planting of the Lord for the display of his splendor." Find your verse. Meditate on it. It really does help. Okay. So you're one of the lucky few who has yet to experience grief. That's great. But look around you. There are women in here that are hurting, and your job is to step up. Okay, this is where I can get kind of bossy, so I'm sorry, but I'm gonna boss you around a little bit. The first thing you need to do is just be present. Y'all, it's 3 words, it's simple. Just be present, okay? Don't ever look at somebody and say, "Call me if you need anything," okay? They're not gonna call you. Sometimes, I mean, there's a few people that might, but chances are we're not gonna call you. Do we want your help? Do we need your help? Absolutely. Am I gonna call you? No. Show up at your friend's house. If you know they're home, show up. Don't give them a choice. Just say, "Coming over." Take them coffee. Take them dinner, so there's at least one day she doesn't have to worry about cooking. Go fold her laundry. Don't let her tell you no, just go do it. Go vacuum, do whatever you need to do, just go over there and do something. Or just go sit. Okay, now y'all know that Kristen and I have a homance, and if you don't know what that means, H-O, yes, it's a homance. So one time, yes, we're always together. If we're not together, we're texting, and her husband was like, "Yo, this is ridiculous. It's like a bromance, but you're girls." So therefore, the homance is born. So y'all, you need to find your person that you can 100% be yourself with. We know we're ridiculous, okay? We don't care. We're having fun. It's fine. You need to find that person that you can do that with, that you can be a goofball with or burst into tears, and they're gonna cry with you. Now, when my brother died, her and I were not all that close. We had hung out kind of in group settings, and we were kind of trying to figure each other out. But when my brother died, she made herself present. Literally, I mean, she wormed her way in, y'all. It's true. She didn't give me a choice. I would have said, "No, I'm good," but she showed up, and she didn't let me sulk when I wanted to. Still to this day, she notices when I begin to retreat into hiding. That's what she says. "Are you retreating into hiding?" Oh, maybe. But she doesn't let me. She comes over, she gets me, she calls me out on it, and she drags me out. You need to be that person to somebody. It is important, okay? Someday you're gonna need someone to be that person for you. And so right now, while you're strong, be strong and be that person for somebody else. Also, you can send little pick-me-ups. Last year, one of the beautiful things I experienced with my grief in this MOPS group was cupcakes. Weird. The first MOPS mom showed up at my door with a chocolate cupcake and a note. I think it was Carla, and I don't think she's here today. I thought, well, that's weird. But I like cupcakes, so thanks. You know, I didn't really kind of know what was going on. So about a week and a half after that, somebody else showed up with another cupcake and a little note, and this kept happening for some time. And as small as a gesture as that is, it meant the world to me. Because even though when I was grieving, you know, the world is moving and moving and moving, and I'm stuck. I'm not going anywhere. They didn't forget about me. Okay? It means the world. Still to this day, I randomly receive gifts in the mail. I've gotten a shirt with my favorite verse on it, a bouquet of flowers, a box of sunshine, and they won't have notes on them. I don't know who they're from. But just knowing that somebody remembers that I'm moving forward a little bit, but that I'm not as fast as the rest of the world, it's nice. I know Patsine still gets stuff in the mail too, and it really, just something so tiny means the world, y'all. It makes us smile, just for a moment. Okay, another thing you can do is ask questions. Once you've made yourself present and you have formed a trusting relationship with your grieving friend, ask them questions. And expect truthful answers. Back to that, how you doing, fine? Don't let your friend tell you they're fine. You're her friend now. You know they're not fine. Don't accept fine as an answer. Help your friend sort out her thoughts and feelings. Help her verbalize what she's going through. It really does help to talk through grief. There were a lot of times that I didn't even know I was feeling a certain way until it came out of my mouth. And I thought, oh, that makes sense. You know, you're just processing so much that once you start talking about it, you can put a word on it or something. Now, I will say that if you're going to make yourself present and you're going to ask questions, you need to be sincere, okay, and be genuinely interested and compassionate. People can tell when you're just asking to be nice. So if you're going to be present and ask questions, put your phone down, turn off the TV, make eye contact, and listen. Reiterate what you hear your friends say, because when you restate their words, they're going to hear it differently, or it'll be like they're hearing it for the first time. They may not be willing to validate their own feelings, but if you restate it back to her, she may put more value in it. Does that make sense? Do not pretend to have the answers for her, period. Even if you have been through the exact same situation and you've come out of it on the other end, do not have the answers. When she's ready for answers, she's going to ask you for advice. You just have to be patient and wait. Okay, so as I told those who are grieving not to put on a timeline on it, you need to do the same thing. Never put a time limit on your friend's grief. Yes, to you, you may be thinking, gosh, it's been a year. It seems like she should be doing better. Don't say that and don't expect that from her. Again, everybody grieves in their own way, in their own time. They're never going to move on, okay? They're going to get better, and they're going to learn to begin looking towards the future again, but they're never going to move past the experience that happened to them. That hole in their heart is never going to be filled. So don't expect that to be. That is a part of them now, and you need to allow it to be a part of them. For instance, I've come leaps and bounds since I lost my brother, but I'm always going to have days where I crash. I'm going to smell a certain smell, or hear a song, or a joke, or a football game. I mean, something so stupid, and I'm going to crash. And I'm going to be in a heap on the floor, and you need to be a friend to that girl. Allow her to wallow in her pity, but only for like a day or two, and then you need to get over there and you need to pick her up. Don't let your friend get stuck there. Again, allow them, but then pick them up. Don't let them get stuck. And remind them of all the wonderful things they have, but don't do it in a condescending way. You know, when somebody dies, people often say, well, they're at peace now. And you're like, well, good for them. I'm not, you know? And I know people, you always have well-meaning, it's always meant for good. But people will say, oh, heaven gained an angel today. Isn't that so sweet? Heaven gained an angel. It's not sweet. Not to somebody who's grieving. Or at least you know they're in a good place now. You know, they're whole, they're healthy, they're not hurting anymore. Don't say that to somebody. I know it's well-meaning, but you can piss off a grieving person faster than anything else when you say stuff like that. And I can sit here and tell you that because I'm the queen of sticking my foot in my mouth. Trust me, I really am. So, I mean, all I can tell you to do is just think before you speak. We're human beings, our words get jumbled up, we don't know what else to say, we freak out, and so we say something stupid. And that's just part of it, and it's okay. Lastly, which again should be first, pray for your friend. Prayer really does help. But here's the catch. If you're going to tell them you're going to pray for them, you need to pray for them. Don't just say, I'm going to pray for you, and walk away. No, you take their hands right then, and you say a prayer. Right then, speak a prayer over your friend. We're all so guilty of saying that we're going to pray for you, or you're in my prayers. But are we really praying for them the way we have said we're praying for them? I say we because, again, I'm guilty about this too. It's so easy just to say, you're in my prayers, and then you forget. Write their name down on your hand. Write it in your journal so that when you see it, you know to speak a prayer over them. It doesn't have to be a long prayer. It can just be a short, one sentence, like, God, give her comfort. Comfort my friends. But if you feel like you just don't have it in you to do anything else for your friend, you can pray for her. And we all need to be doing that for each other anyway. So before I wrap up, Jessica thought it might be a good idea to have the question and answer time. If you have any questions about how to get through grief or get your friend through grief, or about just my story, you can ask me anything. That's what I thought. Y'all are so shy.
No, you covered everything. I love it.
You what?
I said you covered everything.
Oh,
Maybe
thanks.
not.
Yes.
It's not really a question, just as much as a statement.
Yeah.
When I lost my fiance and I went to counseling, the counselor actually told me, I don't know what to do for you, you're so aware.
Yeah.
If you have a counselor, do that, find another counselor.
Find another one, yeah.
The first counselor you go to might not be the counselor for you. You may have to go to 2 or 3 or 4 or 10 before you find a counselor that can actually help you. And just because you're aware of what you're going through does not mean you know how to handle what you're going through. So if you're talking to your friend and they're like, yeah, I know, da 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 da, and you're like, okay, well, I don't know what to tell you because you know everything. Just because you know doesn't mean you know how to handle it. Doesn't mean you actually are coping or working through it or anything like that.
And that kind of goes back to, I said don't be brave, but so many of us are. We feel like we can't show our true feelings. So your friend may seem aware to you, but what is she doing when she's alone? Okay. Before I wrap up, no, I'm going to wrap up. Okay, so the theme of MOPS this year has been to be you bravely. Everything I have talked about today requires you to be brave. If you're grieving and you're struggling through a situation, you are brave. If God is calling you to step out of your comfort zone and be a shoulder to somebody that you know needs one, you are brave too. Facing this uncomfortable topic head on and coming alongside your sisters in Christ in times of need makes us all brave. You're each brave in your own way regarding grief. So I'm not taking up near enough time, or all of the time that I've been given, because I want this time to be for y'all in your groups, at your tables. I want y'all to talk to each other. Who at your table is grieving? Step out of your comfort zone. Own it. Talk about it. I promise you, you will feel better to get it out in the open. Who is God calling to step up for a friend in need? Talk about that too. Is somebody from your table gone today and you know they're at home and you know they're struggling and going through a difficult time? Talk together about ways that you can help them and follow through. Okay, so if you're sitting there and your heart is beating fast and you're feeling a flutter in your tummy and you're ball of nerves and you're anxious and you're worried, that might be God telling you, now's your time. Speak up. Let your sisters in Christ come alongside of you, or He's calling you to be the one to come up next to somebody, okay? So, I want you all to share together and be brave. And I'm going to give you all a handout. It just has some of my favorite Bible verses that have comforted me. And then, you write your own down here. Talk about it at your group. And that's all. Be brave.